You know the one. The person who, for whatever reason, just seems to glide through life while you're stuck hauling your luggage up a broken escalator. Maybe you started at the same time, in the same field, with the same dreams. But while you were hitting roadblock after roadblock, they were finding open doors. Their path was clear, bright, and celebrated. Yours was not. And in that dark, quiet, ugly part of your heart, the part we don't post on Instagram, a little seed of resentment starts to grow. It's not that you wish them ill, exactly. It's just, why them? Why not me? That feeling is jealousy, and it is one of the most human, corrosive, and relatable emotions we have. It's a poison we mix for someone else, but end up drinking ourselves. And comedian Marc just gave a masterclass in what it feels like to finally spit that poison out. In a painfully honest new interview with Esquire, Maron dug deep into one of his most infamous, long-running feuds, his one-sided war against comedy icon Jon Stewart, and his confession is a raw, relatable gut punch. It was fully fueled by my insecurity, Maron admitted. Jon never did anything to me. I was just jealous. For anyone who has followed Maron's career, this isn't entirely new. But the clarity and self-awareness of it feel different this time. It's the sound of a man who has finally, put down a burden he's been carrying for 30 years. Two ships passing in the 90s. To understand why this is such a big deal, you have to understand the context. Back in the 1990s, Maron and Jon Stewart were just two guys in the trenches of the New York comedy scene. They were peers. They were, as Maron describes them, both smart, cute, Jewish guys trying to make it. But their paths diverged, and they diverged hard. Maron briefly took over hosting duties from Stewart on Comedy Central's short attention span theater. It was a gig. But then, in 1994, it was canceled. Maron was adrift. Jon Stewart, meanwhile, found his rocket ship. He took the host chair at The Daily Show, and didn't just host a show, he became the show. He transformed into the most trusted, recognizable, and generation-defining voice in comedy. He wasn't just a comedian anymore, he was an institution. And Marc watched it all. For Maron, who was struggling with his own demons, his career, and his sanity, Stewart's rise wasn't just a success story. It was a mirror reflecting his own perceived failures. I was out of my mind. This is where the jealousy gets specific, and where it becomes so painfully real. Maron's envy wasn't just about the fame or the money, it was about the control. He looked at Stewart and saw someone who was disciplined and knew how to harness and capitalize on his talents. Then, he looked at himself. I never had any control over my talent. I never knew its limitations or what it was, Maron confessed. Imagine that feeling. It's the agony of knowing you have something, a spark, a talent, a voice, but you're too chaotic, too broken, or too out of your mind, his words, to figure out how to use it. And all the while, you watch your contemporary use his spark to light up the whole world. That kind of envy isn't passive, it becomes an obsession. It becomes a character trait. Throughout my early career, Jon was everywhere, Maron said. My envy of him was always, I would just shit on him, and to his face. It was consuming. I couldn't get through a week without him being on the cover of a magazine. This is the part that makes us all wince in recognition. He couldn't escape it. Stewart's success became a personal affront. Maron internalized this idea that Stewart was the disciplined version of what he could have been, if only he'd had his stuff together. For some reason, I saw him as, if I could only have my shit together, I could be more like that guy, Maron reflected. Which wasn't true. I was definitely gunning for something else. He was right. He was gunning for something else. He just didn't know it yet. He was gunning for the raw, unfiltered, brutally honest connection that would eventually become his legendary WTF podcast. He wasn't built to be the polished anchor. He was built to be the guy in the garage, picking at the scabs of the human condition. But he couldn't see that then. All he could see was Stewart. The phone call that stung for a decade. So what happens when you finally start to find your own success, but you're still haunted by the ghost of the guy you resented? You try to make it right. Maron told Esquire that early on in the run of WTF, the podcast that would eventually save his career and redefine his legacy, he reached out to Stewart. He wanted him on the show. He got him on the phone, and as he recalled, he was kind of apologizing for decades of resentment and trash-talking. He was vulnerable. He was extending an olive branch. And Jon Stewart, he wasn't having it. According to Maron, Stewart's response was cold, direct, and utterly devastating. "There's no love here," Stewart allegedly told him. Oof, but it got worse. He said, "I might be willing to have coffee or something, but I'm not doing that with you," Maron recalled. And then, the knockout blow. The line that for an insecure person is the absolute worst thing you can hear. And then he said, "I'm sure what you're doing is very creative, and good luck with it." Maron's assessment of that line, just the stinging condescension of that, it didn't help anything. You can feel that, can't you? It's the pat on the head. It's the, "Oh, that's a cute little project you have there," from the one person in the world whose respect you crave, even as you hate him for having it. It's a brutal reminder that apologies don't obligate forgiveness. You can't just decide you're over it and expect the other person, the one you've been shitting on for years, to be over it too. The Full Circle, Maron's WTF podcast, of course, went on to become one of the most important and successful podcasts in history, with nearly 1,700 episodes. Maron did find his medium. He did find his voice. He became a titan in his own right, on his own terms. And Jon Stewart? After leaving The Daily Show, he eventually started a podcast. Maron couldn't help but note the irony to Esquire. And now he's doing a podcast. So, full circle. There's a weariness in that statement, but there's also peace. Maron's confession isn't about reigniting a feud. It's the opposite. It's the final public acknowledgement that the war was only ever with himself. Jon Stewart was never the villain. He was just the mirror. Maron's story is a powerful, painful, and deeply moving reminder that jealousy is, almost 100% of the time, not about the other person. It's about you. It's about your own fear, your own insecurity, and your own unfulfilled potential. It's the poison we drink, hoping the other person will get sick. The only antidote? It's the hard, messy, 30-year-long work of figuring out who you are, and then finally being okay with it. It's the work of building your own house, even if you're doing it while staring at the guy in the mansion on the hill. Maron finally built his house. It just happens to be a garage, and it's exactly where he was always supposed to be.